Creating a speculative reality within which to design allowed us to think in a more lateral way. The lens we designed was representative of the sense of the world we are creating and subsequent fears attached to the way in which we will go about progressing into the future. What will that world look like, and what will the design challenges of tomorrow be? The alienating fraction of science fiction we chose to design around was the cyborg, the man of the future. The ideas initially thrown around were designing for the polluted and destroyed world we might create as a result of our indifference to the environment, thinking of people with iron lungs to breathe the toxic air and laser vision to see through the smog. However, deciding quickly that it might be more reflective of advancing logic-driven technology to think about how people might get segregated into different fractions designed to ensure an improved rate of productivity. We staged a presentation to educate the wider reaches of society, choosing the town of Southbourne intentionally so that we can make the idea seem accessible as if talking plainly to a wide range of people in a small town. This has the added effect of implicating how society works in a practical sense and making the outlandish speculative reality we were presenting to the class seem more palatable. The key presented ideas being a government body named the IFC, Integrated Futures Committee, and the HDT, Human Determination Test. We presented some example questions that would have helped decide where people might be placed. For example, you are a chimpanzee. Your child is very ill and you're on a journey to find a cure, but at the moment all that's weighing on your mind is a desperate hunger. You see some bananas dangling in a tree. Do you climb up and get them? Yes, I would climb the tree. No, I would focus on finding a cure instead. And you walk around an area and look in some shops. You see some clothes that you like the look of. How would you most likely buy them? I would buy them then and there. I would wait and look online for them, then order them to my house. These questions were heavily inspired by the Turing test, but to diagnose how human one might be, rather than a test of artificial intelligence, intended to separate people into two fractions, H1 and H2, chosen as representative of the hemispheres of the brain, one representing the more cyborg-inclined people and the other the more human alternative. We knew right from the inception of this idea that it was flawed practically, but its purpose was never to devise a system by which to segregate people. The purpose of this fiction was to create a fresh lens by which to solve problems, and for this purpose it was successful. We quickly found empathy for the fictional machine beings, as they would soon be known, and sought to see them as a lens through which we would design. We thought about what it might look like to be separated from your more human counterparts and be labelled cyborg and othered. Would you be discriminated against? Would you be seen as lesser? Our narrative quickly expanded, thinking about the last of the kind, envisaging a world in which factories are completely autonomous, able to fulfil the function for which they were designed with need for only one living part, doing a job that only a human could do. We started to think about how lonely that might be, and what a person might do in such a situation to reconnect with his or her humanity. Here are the objects we came to design, each of which representing a core human need. We decided to present them through a theoretical exhibition of machine being artwork at the V&A and created a poetically narrated advert for the exhibition, talking as if they were a mysterious extinct species speculated upon by archaeologists and specialists. Through this project we got to the heart of what it means to be human, through the lens of the overly technological progression of the structures that form our society. We're all becoming a little more cyborg, but as long as we are flesh and blood, design in some small way will always be tailored to the irrational nature of our humanity. Personally, my own design practice will always be empathetic to this speculative approach. It taught me that to find a problem to solve, a foundational part of the design process, in a world saturated with designers, it is important to sometimes take an abstract approach to the process to enable originality. This project was first and foremost a personal journey for me. What makes me approach work or not in the way that I do, and tackling one of the most commonly asked existential questions, am I trying hard enough? This question induces inner turmoil within most people, and especially in me. At university, we were all faced with more opportunity to learn, but also more distraction than we would have ever faced previously in our lives. I think for most, this paradigm presents itself as a duality of personality within each student, both the procrastinating drinking partygoer, longing for the next thrill which is never too far out of reach, and the bookworm academic falling in love with the work of an artist, poet or designer. We are all nothing more than a fuck it away from a rave or a midnight library session. A perfect balance, however, is something rarely maintained, and around the time of this brief being set, I found myself straying towards the former. Halfway through this project, I was still at a miss for ideas. I found myself constantly procrastinating and wondering why I was being this way. Why was I escaping from the project that should be encompassing my every other thought? To both answer this question and create two objects that could act as guides to others, increasing awareness of their own state of procrastination, I decided to create two video pieces. The first being a documentation of me posing the question to those who know me well: do you think I procrastinate? This being in addition to other questions to help elaborate upon their answers. It was harrowing to see how people saw my recent attitude, one of my housemates even stating that, "Do you often observe me procrastinating?"
Yes. As in, I don't observe you, but when I see you, you're usually procrastinating.
Do you think I'm making the most of university?
No.
The second was my own depiction of what I saw as being the perfect student, waking up early with a thirst to learn and being the most generally studious individual. The two objects were designed to be a representation of the duality I spoke of at the start of this piece, but also the gap that I felt had developed between how I was and where I wanted to be. Acting out the role of the good student also worked as self-indoctrination, a sort of fake it until you make it. One problem lay with the first film, as it was not as polished as I might have liked. It could have done with some of the shots been redone, and my videography left some to be desired. I was aware that the latter of the objects quickly became a parody, an outlandish version of what one might see as the perfect student, but was still representative of what I wanted to convey. The idea that I saw myself as being imperfect allowed me to other the idea of perfection, to the point at which it became surreal. This in itself could be seen as a critique, but in fact I believe it added to what I wanted to say, becoming a metaphor for how I saw perfection, rather than the video purely being an instruction. Much like in the Zao project, thinking in abstract terms about what design could be and setting a brief far out of my own comfort zone allowed me to get an end result and more interesting content than I might otherwise have achieved. Although enjoying the obvious tension between these two objects, I felt it manifest more as process work, both to the service of my own personal progression, but also as a series of work. It needed a conclusion. During Zao, one of the final products of our project was a poem speculating on the life of the machine beings, which I found successful in summarising what we had wanted to say. So, taking inspiration, I've created a poem talking about the student and the nature of procrastination.
I am imperfect. It's inherent. It's a choice. What can I do? The work is drowning. The mind is tiring. So easily lost, so easily found. Ideas electric. What can I do? So much chance, so much morning. What can I do? What can I do? We know what we must be, the person we should see, reflection in a mirror. What can I do? It's okay not to try your hardest. What does that mean? What can I do? I want to escape. I want to succeed. What can I do?
We set ourselves the question: how is superstition and reputation upheld in the city through space and occupying objects? Superstition, right from the offset, was a difficult word to unravel, each of us having different ideas about how we wanted to apply a definition in the context we had chosen: London. Superstition is widely regarded as a belief or way of behaving that is based on fear of the unknown and faith in magic or luck. However, wanting to expand upon this, some of us felt that the concept could be taken further and applied to the city as a whole. Could it be said that the city itself is a superstition? Is it that the city is an idea that is created and upheld rather than an objective truth? In consideration of the fact that London itself is made up of so many constituent elements, is it not impossible for it to be anything more than a fiction to describe anything as being so London, when that can mean almost anything, making the idea of such an aura a superstition in and of itself? Choosing the bicycle as our object and thinking about how it is situated, made into something of superstition and the representations of such, we did primary research looking into London's rich cycling culture, asking questions to bicycle shop workers, cycling groups of all kinds, and cycle cafes. Also doing secondary research into the more statistical, data-based information found on websites such as Stole My Ride, loss quickly became a theme of our work, honing in on the pain felt when people's bicycles are lost or stolen. Also becoming fascinated with the ghost bike phenomenon, this being the fact that when cyclists are on the road, it is a common occurrence to place a white bicycle in place where the accident happened. These objects we felt were representative of a superstitious act. The white bikes seemed in some way mysterious. We also liked how they work in a practical sense, warning of the dangers to cyclists at a specific point in the road. We also began to see the bike as an extension of the body and create a lens through which to see the problem of bike loss, imagining a speculative London within which bicycles and their relation to people became an emotional symbiosis to the point that education, nursery rhyme, and seance-like rituals were all bicycle-centric. If a person's bike were to be lost or stolen, say, there would be objects that would help the rider reconnect with the spirit of the bike, to be in the same position, follow the direction of the handlebars, or to pedal in the same manner, but also rewriting nursery rhymes to the theme of educating children to the dangers of not locking up their bicycle and not practicing proper cycle safety. Built against a railing, eyes are always watching, didn't stop them taking, where's my bike? Sammy left the bike by a wall, so easy to steal, no trouble at all. She told the police, but it was in vain. She never saw a bike again. It's raining, it's pouring, the cyclists still rode. They went to bed, their saddles were wet, but their bikes were still there in the morning. We also produced poetry with a darker sentiment, as if the poems were about serious distress or anguish felt by the author, the overarching idea being to indoctrinate a population through education and culture, the cycle of education being city data, urban mythologies, superstition and behaviour. The project spent a lot of time talking about emotional connections with bicycles, but in my opinion the end result lacked somewhat of the emotive quality it needed. I wanted to explore this further throughout the project, so, to bring this to fruition, I decided to do a case study to look deeper into the real relationship a cyclist has with the hobby and the instrument. I think this could have given the project stronger foundations and linked more of the ideas together, providing us with a stronger coherence within the group's ideas.
It's scary sometimes, cycling. Cars, they don't see bicycles. It's weird because most people don't really know much about where they live. They go on holidays to experience the world and see places. But what I've found riding a bicycle is the world is here. The world is right at your doorstep. I've seen so many beautiful views literally 5 miles away from my house, and I know everything about where I live, and I wouldn't trade where I live for anywhere in the world. I was cycling with my friend Zach once, and we were riding two abreast, which means you're cycling next to each other, and this guy, as you know, all drivers get really close to cyclist. He went so close to my friend Zach, almost hit him off, and I was just like, what the fuck? I shouted so loud, and he actually stopped the car and started reversing into us, and we got so nervous. And when he got out the car, I tried to run away, but I remembered I'm in clipless shoes, so I couldn't really do anything. He came right up to me, started shouting at me. He literally put his fist right up to my helmet. It's like you're running almost, but you're not. You're a different sort of person or being. When you're clipped into that bicycle, it just feels like you're one with the bike. Cycling is freedom, really. You get to do whatever you want, and it's not like driving or riding a motorcycle. I had a sports bike for a year and a car. It's more than that. There's no feeling like being on two wheels, without an engine, without noise, without anyone. It's just you and the bike and the world.